Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me indeed great pleasure to be here to officially launch, together with you, Mr. Minister of Foreign Affairs, the new Council of Europe Action Plan for Armenia. As you just mentioned, it is 15 years since the country joined the Council of Europe. I can remember when your flag was first raised outside of the headquarters, among the other flags of Europe. It is where it belongs. Today, as we focus on the action plan, we will naturally focus on what Council of Europe membership brings to you. But before doing this, let me first express our gratitude for what Armenian membership brings to us. Since our organization was first established in the wake of the Second World War, our overarching aim has been to help build peace in Europe on the twin foundations of freedoms and law. Your commitment to peace and to Europe's democratic security is hugely appreciated, and not just in Strasbourg, but across your fellow member states. As the Council of Europe strives to help navigate through what are, I'm afraid, rather troubled waters, the current refugee crisis, the rise in terrorism, our ongoing economic challenges, we thank you wholeheartedly for the constructive part you play. So the question is, where are we after 15 years? It is a period which has been characterized by continuous progress and steady commitment from the Armenian people and successive governments to democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. I hope it was as much a source of pride to you as it was to us when earlier this year our Committee of Ministers, representing the governments of all 47 member states, recognized the continuous progress made by Armenia in meeting its obligations, as well as the clear commitment to further reform. It is worth pausing on some of the positive steps that have been taken and are ongoing. The constitutional reform process, which is aimed, among other things, at strengthening the protection and promotion of human rights and freedoms. There is clearly a lot more to be done as the new constitution is being implemented. And this will be central to the new action plan. But we appreciate very much the openness that has been shown thus far to our Venice Commission. And we look forward to helping you make the new constitution a success. The Secretary General of the Council of Europe recently published his annual report revealing that the lack of independence of the judiciary is a problem across the continent. In many member states, we see courts which are not sufficiently insulated from political interference, diminishing public trust in state institutions and therefore threatening social stability. Mr. Jagland has made this a priority for our organization, and so we attach great importance to the steps Armenia has set in motion to boost judicial independence. This includes defining a new system of judicial nominations and appointments, the creation of a new body of judicial governance, namely the Supreme Judicial Council, and the revision of the Judicial Code. A human rights unit has also been set up within the Judicial Department to help embed the case law of the European Court of Human Rights into everyday Armenian justice. And we now have the School of Advocates, unique, I underline unique in the South Caucasus, to help sew the European Convention on Human Rights into the national fabric here. We welcome recent efforts to establish a probation service. The Council of Europe actively supports this, as well as the use of alternatives to prison. We are also pleased to see the revision in the criminal legislation related to the definition of torture, which is in line with the UN Torture Convention, and we are looking forward to supporting the adoption of a new criminal code and criminal procedure code. I would also like to commend Armenia for taking on board many of the recommendations of our monitoring bodies, including, notably, GRECO, our anti-corruption watchdog. I know that the authorities are presently engaged in an important dialogue with our Committee for the Prevention of Torture regarding prison reform, and we await the outcome of these discussions too. Finally, I would like to highlight the establishment of an effective alternative to military service as a result of the implementation of the general measures from Battaini versus Armenia case in 2011, yet another evidence of the commitment of the authorities to the European values. Of course, having said all this, not everything is perfect and not every reform is complete. With the adoption of the new electoral code, we expect that the run-up to the elections and the elections themselves will be conducted in keeping with European standards. And we are keen that Armenia, which has now ratified 60 Council of Europe conventions, continues in this vein, not least by acceding to our convention to combat violence against women and domestic violence. The story so far of Armenian chairmanship to the Council of Europe has been one of willingness, openness, partnership. Sometimes reform has moved more quickly, sometimes more slowly, but we have been able to overcome the difficulties we encountered and move in the right direction. The new action plan seeks to support Armenia as it continues heading down this path. The new action plan has been designed with and by the authorities in order to build on everything that has been achieved in the areas I have already mentioned and more, such as the provision of social rights, providing protection for the media, local governance reform, strengthening the protection of human rights in the armed forces, and corruption in higher education. I want to thank the authorities for their commitment, notably the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Justice, the Judiciary, the Ministry of Territorial Administration, the Communities Association of Armenia, and the local authorities and human rights organizations who have been involved. Similarly, I would like to highlight that all the Council of Europe bodies and institutions have also contributed extensively to this endeavor, bringing together the expertise of the Strasbourg-based Secretariat a committed network of experts, and the highly competent Yerevan office. I also want to thank the international partners who were involved in the implementation of the previous action plan, as well as the donors who provided over 12 million to it, notably via the strategic partnership between the Council of Europe and the European Union, and also through contributions from Denmark, Norway, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and the Council of Europe's Human Rights Trust Fund. The new action plan is even more ambitious because the implementation of the first one has allowed to develop the trust and confidence which are indispensable in order to achieve the important objectives we have jointly agreed on. We have already been able to mobilize 6.5 million euro for the initial phase of the new action plan implementation, and I now appeal to you, partners and donors, to help us to identify the remaining 10 million euros. This would be the sign of the goodwill which exists towards Armenia democracy, a democracy that we all want irreversible. With that, I should like to thank you very much for the attention.